and give me a shot of steroids for him, just in case he was to deliver. They wanted to get a shot, at least one shot of steroids into me, and they called the other hospital, let them know that they needed to air medevac me to their hospital, and they were getting everything set up for that. Um, about 45 minutes later, the medevac chopper was ready to leave the other hospital and come get me, and they said, we're going to check you one more time because we don't want you to deliver en route to the hospital for sure. That would be very bad. And they checked me, and sure enough, I was 5 centimeters dilated. And he came in and said, "That's it. We're staying here, and we're delivering you now because he's breech. He's coming butt first, and to minimize the possibility of bleeding in the brain and other breech complicated deliveries, um, we're going to do a C-section." And for all of you who have followed me throughout this pregnancy, I have said I absolutely did not want a C-section at all. It was my worst fear was to get a C-section, and um, I just gotten through the anxiety of the possibility of getting on a helicopter because I've never flown anywhere before, and I'm terrified of flying. And so I was just coming down from that anxiety, and then I was thrown this whole new curveball to a C-section. And my husband, he just kept saying, "Honey, don't worry about it. Stay strong. We will get through this. Just, just stay strong for me." And when it really sank in, I got past the C-section part and realized that he was being delivered 12 weeks early. I became utterly terrified, and everything happened so quickly. From the time he said we're going to do C-section to the time I got into the delivery room was 10 minutes, if that. And my husband was putting on his scrubs while I was being prepped. They were shaving me and getting a catheter put in, which I don't recommend be done when you're not numb. If you have to have a C-section, ask them to do the catheter after you've already been numbed up and put on the table, because they did mine in the labor room, and then I had to move from the gurney that I was on to the table and sit on the side of the table with a catheter. And that was not fun. That hurt so bad. Um, and I know that I was bruised severely from this because it hurt so bad to pee for 3 weeks. I'm just now to the point where it doesn't hurt anymore. And it's been 4 weeks already. Uh, the first week, I would hold my bladder 2 hours or more if I could, just so I wouldn't have to pee because it hurt so bad. I was in tears every time I went to the bathroom. Um, so yeah, definitely ask for the catheter to be placed after you've had your spinal or your epidural, whatever you're gonna get. But they got my epidural or my spinal block put in. I lay down. They got the curtain up in front of me, and before I was even completely numb, they started cutting, and I could feel the knife go across the top layer of my skin, and it didn't hurt till like I was screaming hurt, but I definitely felt it. It felt like a razor blade, like a really thin razor blade going over your skin, and I remember saying, "I could feel that, I could feel that, I could feel that," And finally, somebody answered me, like, well, you're not going to feel much anymore. Just give it some time. I'm like, but I can feel it now. And they just told me to calm down. I knew I was going to get sick to my stomach because the last time I had the spinal block, it made me very, very nauseous to the point I threw up. And so I told them, I said, before, as I was being laid down, I said, I got really nauseous the last time I had a spinal block. Um, you may want to have some medication ready. And sure enough, I got sick. Um, I was getting sick as my husband was being brought in, and um, poor guy, he had to see my stomach open. I was so upset that he had to see that. Um, but I just remember how, despite the noises around me, the heart monitors and the nurses and doctors talking amongst themselves, it was really quiet. And I just don't know if it was me finally calming down a little bit. Um, and then Dr. Solberg said we were getting ready to pull him out, and then my anxiety started all over again. And I just, the thoughts of him being 12 weeks early, I'm like, no, don't do this, put him back, started to set in. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't get my mouth to open up. And he came out, and I couldn't see him. They didn't show him to me because they had to put him right on a bed, and the neonatologist that was there started working on him. He um, his right lung collapsed right after birth, so they had to help. They had to get his right lung inflated. Um, and I just remember while they were working on him, it was so quiet in there while they were working on him, and I couldn't see at all what they were doing. They were off to my right, and the curtain that was up was right in the way of where he was at, and I couldn't see. Um, I remember they said that they're going to move him over to the NICU and work on him there and get him cleaned up. And I said, Dave, go with him. Don't stay here, go with him. And even if I hadn't said that, they were making him go anyway. They told him he had to stay with him. And then I was left alone in the OR again. And after Dave left, I flipped out. I started bawling my eyes out. Um, knowing that he was so small and not knowing what was going to happen because they were in another room, and um, I didn't know if he was alive or not at that point because they hadn't told me. And I was just so scared. And yeah, they got me. It took them about another hour to close me up and get me ready to go into recovery. Um, I was only in recovery for about half an hour because they wanted to get me out of there so I could go see him before they transferred him to Shady Grove. And um, by then he was delivered at 10:34. By then it was midnight by the time I got to my room. And I was so tired. And um, I hadn't seen Dave yet. Uh, Dave came with me to the recovery while they were finishing working on him in the NICU, and he stayed with me while I was being transferred to my room. And my parents got there right after everything had happened, and they were in there with me waiting for us to be able to see Jaden. And I know it's horrible, but I just remember thinking, I don't want anybody here right now. I just want to be by myself with Dave. And I feel really bad for thinking that way now, but I did not want to be around anybody then. I was so upset.